Hi everyone, Inat Kessler here with a new video tutorial, and today I'm going to show you how to make an art journal page with only one material, and this is distress inks. So I have a few sizes of distress inks. It doesn't matter what size you use, and I also have the blending tools. So let's get started. So I'm going to start stenciling on my page, and I'm starting with the smallest pattern that I want to use. And I'm simply going to start taking colors. I want to concentrate mainly on reds and oranges, but we'll see as we go along. And when you use distress inks, these are very unique types of ink because they are, of course, sort of a dry ink, and they really blend well together. So you can make really lots of backgrounds by simply blending a few distress ink colors together. And the basic way to use distress inks is by applying them in a circular motion. Even if you do stenciling or just coloring the background, the best way is to apply them in a circular motion. That spreads the ink in the best way possible on the page. So I'm going to switch colors now and patterns, and I'm going to grab another stencil. So basically what we're creating are layers. I'm using different stencils and I'm layering them one on top of the other. I'm not covering the entire paper because I still want to have some white areas. And you can control how dark or how light the distress ink is simply by applying less or more ink. So if you want your color to be really strong and dark, then you will need to apply more ink to the paper. If you want the color to be lighter, then simply apply less ink. It's also a matter of applying less pressure. The less pressure you apply on the sponge, the lighter the color will be. So even if you don't have lots of colors for the distress inks, you can still play with the amount that you apply and get different hues of the same color. So I'm going to add a little bit of this pattern now. I'm trying to see if I have the right color of sponge that I've used before, and if I don't, I simply take a fresh one. And then I keep them for future use. And just don't forget to close each of the pads when you finish. Otherwise they will dry, and you certainly don't want that. So I'm adding a little bit of green because I want the contrast that it has with the reds and the oranges. Again, you can use whatever colors you have in your stash. And I just want to add that if you want to have a specific shape that you don't have a stencil for, you can always make a stencil from cardstock. Simply print your shape or image on the computer and then cut it out. Just needs to be a little bit thick paper like cardstock, so it will be easier to work with. I'm just moving now to a larger circle pattern, and I want to add some circles. I'm applying very little pressure and very little ink because I still want the layers underneath to show. And this is what is really good about distress inks. You can work with so many layers and they will still all be visible. All depends on how dark your colors are and how much ink you add. And I'm going to add another color to the circles just on the edges to create sort of a 3D effect or a shadowing effect. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to show you, see how that looks. You can still see all the layers that we did. And now I want to just add a little bit of coloring to the white areas of the pages. And again, I'm applying the distress ink with a circular motion from the edge towards the inside. This will give me an even coverage of the paper. Okay, so now I really like how this looks. You can go ahead and add more layers if you want, but I'm going to make my focal point. I have here a woman silhouette stencil that I'm going to use, and again, if you don't have something like that, you can always print it from the internet, cut it out, and make your own stencil. It's really easy. I'm using black distress ink. I want it to be very dramatic, and I'm starting with the outside parts of the image, leaving the center slightly lighter shade of black. I'm going to cover it, but first I want to do the edges. I want the edges to be really black and dark. And once I have the edges ready, I can go ahead and add a little bit of ink to the center. Of course, you can pick whatever, and of course that, again, like I said, if you don't have a stencil with letters, you can always use stamp letters. You can stamp with distress inks. So I'm going to spell "you are enough." So I have to look for each of the letters and then place my stencil exactly where I want the letter to be. So I just keep adding my letters. Of course, there is a limit to the amount or to the size of letters that you can use. You can use smaller letters, but if I wanted to use really small letters, I would use stamps with my distress inks instead of a stencil. You can still say you make the entire page from one material, which is distress inks, because the background, the text, the focal points, they're all from the same distress ink variety that you have. Now I have a tendency to smear my Posca pen. I don't know how. I always manage to do that, so I'm just going to turn the paper to make sure that I don't do it this time. And then I'm going to dry my pen each time in the hopes of not smearing it this time. Just going to go around the letters like I did around the women's silhouette. It really makes it pop, gives it definition and borders. I really like how that turned out. And then basically I think that my page will be complete. Don't need to make too much elements on the page, too many of them, because sometimes too much can be too much. So I always say that you need to know when to stop. When you're making an art journal page, you need to know when to stop adding things to your page. So I'm going to finish with the U, and then I'm going to add some dots, and I think that will be it. I also, if you can see, want to write something inside the image, and you can see how well the Posca pen writes on the distress ink. There's no problem. So you can see that I also added some lines, some dotted lines around the image. And now I want to also add some dots that correspond with those lines. And then I think I'll be really happy with my page. So those dots are going to show only on the dark parts of the page. So that will be really cool. So you'll see them, but then you won't see them. I really like how this page turned out. I really hope that you like this technique and you'll give it a try. It can be a little bit scary, but it's fun to challenge yourself to do something like this and see how creative you can be and what you can achieve just by using one material. Just give it a try, challenge yourself. You're the only one who's going to see it, so it's fun. So I'm adding a little bit more of those dots. So I really hope you like this tutorial and that you'll give it a try. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the little bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video, so you won't miss anything and you'll be able to follow all the tutorials and make all the projects. Thank you very much for joining me. Please give this tutorial a try and I will see you next time.